Hi,
Hello, 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 and welcome to No Finance, No Romance. We are your hosts,
Naaman.
and I am Rashida Haig, and we are excited to be here on another Thursday. We are here every other Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we thank you so much for joining us on this evening. We are going to be talking about, as you sing, Bound by Our Word. Ooh. And just to do a little recap, just real quick, we talked about last week the power of our vows, our promises. So, not last week. I'm sorry, the last Thursday that we were on. So today we'll be talking about bound by our word. So we are excited about today's word. So you can join us. You can follow us. We are on Clubhouse. We are on Facebook, and we are on YouTube under Wisdom for the Wilderness. So join us if you would like to, or follow us. Don't forget to hit the on YouTube the the bell, the notification
Like,
bell.
subscribe, hit the
Yes,
bell,
yes, go
ring a ding ding,
baby.
so you can be abreast
Yes,
of all that's going on. Because
yes,
this is just one of the many facets of what we're trying to bring to help to encourage people. Primarily, our aim and our focus is families.
yes,
So this here, no finance, no romance, deals with relationships,
yes,
but it also primarily focuses in on couples.
yes.
So, but it's not limited to just couples, but we're coming from the perspective of couples and relationships. So somewhere it's going to factor in to those categories.
Yes. And also, if you are on Facebook and you say, hey, I'm not really on YouTube, but I'm on Facebook, then you can go to our Facebook page, Wisdom for the Wilderness, hit the like and the follow, and then turn on your notifications over there as well. So that way you can get all the notifications for anytime we go live, because we do more than just no finance, no romance. We do other things over there as well, and as well as the Wisdom for the Wilderness Club. If you're say, hey, I'm just strictly Clubhouse, and then you can go ahead and follow our club, Wisdom for the Wilderness Club, and that way you can see the different rooms that we do during the month. All right. So other than that, welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for those that are tagging on Facebook, that are sharing on Facebook, and also sharing on Clubhouse as well as YouTube. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your tags, your shares. Thank you so much. We don't want to just hold the word for ourselves, but we want to share it with others.
Mhm.
And we appreciate your help for helping us to get the word out there, the encouragement out there to others. So we are a team. So let's work together. So thank you so much for that, babe.
Well, this is, or our today's session is coming on the heels of what I like to call the most wonderful time of the year. So for us, our birthdays follow one after the other, and then our anniversary comes right after that. So a couple, thank you to those, coined a phrase called happy anniversary.
Yes.
So it is the combination, the culmination of both of our birthdays and anniversary back to back
Yes.
to back. And we're just coming off the heels of that. So we're in a blissful state concerning one another because it's a good time for us.
Yes.
And it's a time that we look forward to, and a time that is very endearing, where we get to take the time to show one another our heart
Yes.
toward each other, towards our relationship, towards our family as well. So, with that in mind, it brings up or helps lead us into the importance of the promises and how we are literally bound by what we say.
Mm.
Because keep and regard this, we are to be Christ like.
Yes.
That is the simple definition for a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
someone who emulates, who repeats, who mirrors
Yes.
the actions, the heart of Christ.
Yes.
So that's who we're supposed to be. So then people should be able to hold on to what we have to say and regard it as what? Our word being our bond, as life. Because when we speak something, it ought to just not just be words going anywhere, but it ought to be able to be a staple, showing people truly who we are, what we stand for, what we do and don't approve of, what we agree with, how we identify our words, our promises. So the Bible talks about over in Proverbs that we ought not be quick to make promises, because whomever you make a promise to that same person, you are a slave until you complete, you fulfill what you said. So it's better to keep your mouth quiet, to not say, because once you say, you are bound to keep that word. So let's take a look at one example of the power of a promise. And really, you could even say the weight of our words. So let's make sure that what's coming out of here, we truly stand behind it. Because once we release it, one person said, you can't take it back. It's out there. It's almost like the internet. It's out there pretty much, especially if it's been recorded, forever. Or if whomever you're speaking to, especially in the case of your spouse and you're having a, let's just say, a heated debate, and you mess up and you say the wrong thing, they may hold on to that thing and then hold that against you. So let's look over here. Okay, go ahead.
Just real quick, I just want to define the word promise real quick. So as Naaman was talking, it says promise, and the any definitions that I give come out of the Webster's 1828 dictionary. It says promise, in a general sense, a declaration, written or verbal, made by one person to another, which binds the person who makes it, either in honor, conscience, or law, to do or forbear a certain act specified. A declaration which gives to the person to whom it is made, a right to accept or to claim the performance or forbearance of the act. And just keep that in mind too, even as God, he gives us his promises, right? And so go ahead, babe.
Well, that's just another good point. We take God's promises as law. Do we regard our own words that same way? So when we say something, is it something that somebody can really hold us to?
Wow.
Because that's the thing. We're being held accountable by what we say. Yes, our actions have something to do with it, but if our actions are contrary to our words, then what value do our words have? We are either adding or subtracting based upon the actions that show behind our words. And the thing is, we may have the best of intentions.
Come on.
But the implementation of what we do is going to reign. So when our words are in one place and our actions are in another place, and they just don't seem to come together, how are people going to look at what I have to say? Because the first thing that happens is people hear. So if you're hearing, but then what you hear doesn't line up with what you're seeing, you're going to be skeptical. You're not going to what? Trust. And especially if the pattern seems to be repeated over and over and over again. So in that definition, when I heard that word by law, what do you think a contract is? Promises, declarations made from one party to the other. I will behave in this way. We will transact business in this way. We will do things in this way. And because of the contract, you are bound by it.
Yes.
Married couples, you took vows. Those are promises. That is a contract sealed with what? So you are bound to that person until the two of you agree to go otherwise.
Yes.
So we have to understand where we are in the development, the sustaining of our relationships.
Yes, yes, yes.
It takes work, but we make the work more difficult when our words have no weight, have no bearing. Look at it like this. If you've ever gone fishing, even in a pond, you put weights on the end of the line. Why? Because you want the bait to be seen by certain fish at a certain depth within that body of water.
Yes.
Now, I was privileged to go to one of my very good, very close friend growing up, his wedding out in California. And the first day he had lined up activities for us while we were out there. So the first day was out there, group of guys who were all part of the wedding in some way. We went deep sea ocean fishing. So we went into the Pacific Ocean to fish. And so we start going after salmon.
Mm-hmm.
In order to get the line low enough to catch salmon, we had to put some huge weights.
Yes.
And then we had to drop the line at least 25 to 30 feet below the water.
Wow.
So you're going and you're just extending, guessing without measuring, but that's what you would do with the heavy weights on the line. And then if you lost the line at any point in any time for any reason, you had to immediately replace the weights. Because otherwise what would happen? It wouldn't go down far enough to catch what you were after. We wanted salmon. Salmon are at least 25 to 30 feet, at least that deep. And then they go even deeper. But then the deeper you go, the different type of fish you potentially catch. So what am I saying? That in order to have your word sustained, when you lose the weight, the bearing on it, more and more, it's just bouncing off of that person. They're not really receiving it because they don't feel like they can trust it, because they don't feel like they can trust you.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
Because we keep saying things, but between our actions, our attitude, or just the completion and the fulfillment of what we have to say, it's not apparent. It's absent. So now we're building up a wall between ourselves and them. There is now certain separation because what? They don't feel like there is any value to our words, our promises. So when we make a mistake, it's like, okay, I sincerely and I deeply apologize. But then if we continue to make that mistake over and it's repeated, and it's like, okay, what has changed? You told me you really didn't want to do this, but every time I look up, there it is again. There it is again. The pattern just keeps repeating. And so we're not going to get into deliverance, but that's when it really needs to kick in. Because part of salvation is deliverance, the ability to turn and separate from the actions and the attitude that kept us in a sinful nature and state.
Yes, that's good.
But I'm not going to go in depth into that. Not today. Not today. But let's look over at Matthew, the 14th chapter. And we're going to look at a scripture that is popular, but oftentimes not talked about. Okay. And especially from the aspect of promises. So we're looking at Matthew 14. We're going to look at verses, we'll go 5 through 9. Matthew 14, verses 5 through 9. So we're going to be looking here at John the Baptist and King Herod. Now, if you know your Bible, you know that it was King Herod who ultimately had John the Baptist killed. But let's look at the circumstances that led to his death. Now, right now, we see that as we're coming in, John the Baptist is the prisoner of the king, because the king was trying to shut him down, didn't want him going forward with what he was continually ministering. Excuse me. So we'll go here in verse 5, and coming out of the King James. And when he would have put him to death, he feared the multitude, because they counted him as a prophet. So the king wanted to kill John, but the people were so up in arms that he refrained from doing so for fear of the people. Basically, he felt like if I kill John, I'll have a mob on my hands. Verse 6, but when Herod's birthday was kept, the daughter of Herodias danced before him and pleased Herod. So basically, his daughter came and danced before him. Now, let's see how everything was set up here in verse 7. Whereupon he promised with an oath. He promised with an oath. So basically, he doubled down on what he was saying, to give her whatsoever she would ask. Verse 8, and she, being before instructed of her mother, said, give me here John Baptist's head in a charger. So basically, I want his head on a plate. Verse 9, and the king was very sorry. Nevertheless, for the oath's sake, so for the promise that he made, what he had established, what he said he would do, and them which sat with him at meat, he commanded it to be given her. So because of the fact that he declared that he would give her whatever she asked, and he did it in the presence of others, he was bound by what he said. And in verse 9, we see that it says he was sorry. He didn't want to do it. He was bound by his word. He was stuck in a situation he didn't really want to be in, but because his word came out. See, one thing that we also have to understand, and we don't live it. We are kings and queens. So when our words go out, they are meant to be adhered to. Angels are listening. Heaven is listening. People are listening. Yes. But we give no range, no weight, no depth to what we have to say. So as a result, it's just sound passing on the wind. But this man knew his state and his stature. And because he was the king, and because he said this in a court of people, he was bound and had to follow through with what he said. Now, this reminds me of another king who was in a similar situation. We know that in Daniel, the 6th chapter, when Daniel ended up in the lion's den, that the other leaders had gone before King Darius and told him, put up a charge, make it law, that for such a period of time, no one prays, no one worships, no one seeks for any other God except to honor you. And anyone who does so during this time ends up getting fed to the lions. Oh, Jesus. And when Darius, he signed a decree, sealed it with the ring. And then when it went forth and he found out that they got a hold of Daniel, it hit him. It hurt him. Daniel and he had more than just a working relationship. I really think, in all honesty, they would have valued each other to say that they were friends. So much so that when the day had passed, after Daniel had been put in the lion's den, Darius was the first one on the scene talking about roll back the rock, move it out of place. Daniel "Oh, Daniel, has your God been able to deliver you?"
Oh, Jesus.
He's the first one down there. Said he couldn't sleep all night. He didn't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, knowing how things were in that day, in that time, they sent minstrels, they sent singers, dancers, whomever, whatever, to try and put him at ease. And it did not work because he was concerned for his friend whom he had put in the lion's den.
Mm-hmm.
But because he signed a law, he established a promise.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't go back on it.
Oh, Jesus.
Why? Because he was the king.
Mm-hmm.
So he followed through with it. But then when he found out that Daniel was safe, when it was well, the punishers ended up getting punished.
Mm-hmm.
So know that we are kings and priests.
Yes.
Doesn't the Bible establish that? So our words are being adhered to.
Ah, Jesus.
Even when we speak poorly of ourselves or our loved ones.
Yes, that's good. That's good. Mm-hmm.
So regardless of how they may make you feel in a moment, don't be quick to release negative and defaming words over them.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because that's what you're trying to speak into their life.
Oh, forgive.
So if we want that to be acceptable, then continue to speak in that same vein. But if not, we need to stop it, release it. That's why sometimes, even especially, your emotions will run you ragged and not care. Because they just want to be satisfied. But the thing that we have to realize, you can't satisfy your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
They never get enough, good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about infatuation. It's real simple when it comes to your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
They will leave you infatuated. So much so, that's why you have people that do things that are like, oh, that's just above and beyond. Why are they going to that extent?
Yes.
Again, positively and negatively.
Yes.
Your emotions have no idea when to stop. That's why it's up to us to put the brakes on, to prohibit them from taking us to places that we truly don't want to go.
That's good.
Because infatuation has led to stalkers, has led to, let me help you, even rage. So, and again, it goes both ways. Too much and even not enough. So again, these promises, when we open up our mouths, we are establishing what we are believing, what we're holding on to, and what our expectation is. So we really have to find ourselves doing those things that are what? Breeding success, breeding life. So there's an old saying that came from the Bambi movie. It came from Lil Thumper. And he was talking with his mom. He talked because the first time he came in contact with Bambi, Bambi was a newborn and could barely stand, could barely walk. And he was describing how unorthodox he was. And his mother got on him and asked him to repeat the lesson that they were teaching him. Yes. If you don't have nothing good to say, don't say anything. All them working your last nerve, whatever.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Why are we speaking death over them? Why are we condemning them? Their actions will speak enough on their own. They have enough problems and situations on their own, let alone we're sitting there bashing them at the same time. We need to be praying God's blessing over them to help them get out of whatever rut it is that keeps producing these negative traits and practices in their lives.
Yes, yes.
And the same for those that we're closest to. That's one of the reasons why the Bible tells us that our hurt, biggest areas of hurt, are going to come from those that are closest to it, because we don't think they would be the ones to do the things that end up resulting that we see in our lives.
Yes.
They wouldn't dare. Oh my goodness, that hurts so much.
Mm-hmm.
As Shakespeare would describe, you've cut me to the quick. You've cut me in a way that nobody else could.
Yes.
Deeper and stronger, harder, than anyone or anything else. So we have to stay on top of our promises, because our words, they matter. They matter. So when we just go spewing off at the mouth, even if we're trying to vent, it's like, I got to let it out and I got to get it. We have to figure out the best ways, the most effective ways. Let me help you. Positive ways to release stuff. Because again, when you're led of your emotions, you will spew out all kinds of things.
Yes.
And it could be fire, it could be venom, it could be poison, it could be toxic, but it's coming out of your mouth. And here's the other thing. It comes out of your mouth. Why? Because it's in your heart or it's on your mind. It's in one of those two places. So before stuff comes out of here, it's had time to develop here and in here. So what is mostly running up here and down there to cause certain thoughts to come out of here? What is it within us that we're recycling? And again, these promises have weight and are needful and necessary to where we're going to go. Sheeta, is there anything you wanted to add right now?
Yeah, so thank you all so much for joining us here. No Finance, No Romance. We are here every other Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're here, just like I say, every other week on Thursdays, and we're just excited about being here today. We are talking about Bound by Our Word, and so thank you for joining. That's it. Go ahead.
Well, we talked earlier about the fact that promises are really like a contract. So we're going to jump over here to Genesis 29 and look at something that we've known, that we've seen, but now we're going to look at it from our own point of view. We're going to look at it as valuing and determining ourselves, where we are in what we say, how we hold to our promises. So in Genesis 29, and again, coming out of the King James, and verse 18, we're going to go from verse 18 and skip right down to verse 27. So, and Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. So he's talking to his uncle Laban, and he's asking for Rachel's hand in marriage. And as an agreement, based upon just words, Jacob is saying, I will serve, I will work 7 years for your younger daughter's hand in marriage. Now jump down to verse 27. Fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou hast served me yet 7 other years. So this is where we find out that Laban, being whom he was, has set him up and said, okay, you served me 7 years. I kept a veil on her face so that when you went in to, I'm trying to think of my word, starts with a C, consummate your marriage, lo and behold, it wasn't Rachel. It was Leah. So since you served me 7 years and I decided not to give you the daughter that you wanted, serve me 7 more years. And you can have the one that you wanted in the first place. This man went 14 years for what he so richly wanted and desired. And the Bible also records that it was nothing to him, the time, because he was so ready to receive her as his wife. Now, understand, he doesn't get her until he receives these 14 years. So it's not like even a prisoner in prison and he gets conjugal visits. No, he couldn't be with her. He couldn't touch her. She was not his until he fulfilled the 14 years. And even when it talks about fulfill her a week, that's still in regards to 7 as in years. So basically the promise, the vow that you established in the beginning, you filled it the first time, but you didn't get what you want. So here, fill it again so that you can receive what you wanted. Now, I don't know about some of us, and I'm just going to say this for myself. I don't know. No, I would have done the next 7, but I would have had a fit doing that first 7, and I not get what I want. Oh, there's something about to go down. Something about to go down. This is not settled. This not. Oh, I don't care if you family. I got an ought.
Yes.
I'm upset. We had an agreement. You understood the agreement. You still understand the agreement. So whoa. You didn't say nothing about the laws of the land. You get the oldest first. No, I didn't want her. I want her. So, yeah, that's just me. I would have kept fighting for this one, but Lord Jesus, I would have been mad. Something might have ended up broken. I know they didn't have cars back in those days, but there might have been some windows busted out, some tires deflated, some cars keyed, something. I'm just saying. Would not have been happy.
Yeah.
And you're going to do this all in secret. And the bad part is they were all aware of it and didn't nobody say nothing. Yeah, that's an even bigger problem. But I'm not going to go there right now. We're going to talk about these promises. So he was bound to do and sustained his word. Yeah. Even regardless of the wrong that was done to him, what did he do? He kept his word. We know that God, even when we do wrong, will still keep his word. Yes. So where are we with our vows? Where are we with our pledges? Where are we with what we promise? Where are we with what we state? Our declarations, the things that leave our mouths. And let's take it a step further. See, even when you got married, you signed paperwork. You signed a contract. You signed a written agreement. It's called a marriage license. You had to file with the state in order to make it official. There's documentation stating and saying that I am bound to this individual here. And guess what? You did it by your own free will. And it's just so amazing sometimes how quickly we turn when they're not doing things exactly the way in which we envisioned. Yeah. We lose sight of the promise. We lose focus on the vows. The strength and the integrity of what was being discussed early on is being dismissed when things are not ideal. Yes. So let's really look and evaluate and really determine, even if we have to slow down with what we have to say, just breathe for a minute. Yes. Don't be so quick to respond. Why? Wisdom crieth out. We have to understand that this is a powerful tool for evil or for good.
Mhm.
We determine how we use it.
Mhm.
And honestly, we need to ask the Lord how to effectively use it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, yes, we do need to speak up on certain matters and we just stay hushed on it. Sometimes, yes, we do need to hush when we're speaking up.
Mhm.
What are we supposed to do? Be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. His leading, his example, his direction is always going to order our steps. And as a result, we'll have what we desire most: a sound and a comfortable, a loving relationships.
Yes.
Moving and going forward with the people that we deal with, we'll find strength and we'll find help when we allow God to lead us in our conversations.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because I tell you this, he's the most effective speaker the world has ever known. So don't be so quick to promise.
Mhm.
Don't be so quick to vow. Because there's an old saying, been hung by your tongue. We have to understand we're bound by what we say.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's best to not say anything at all.
Yes. Yes.
Because then they have a right to expect. Isn't that what the definition said? They have a right to expect to receive or to see activation, demonstration over the things that we established. Sheeta.
Yes, and that's good. Naaman, and just even as you were speaking of about oath and vows, and it just made me think. And one of the things that I'm learning is that God is really concerned about our words.
Yes.
And he's concerned when we make vows, when we make covenants, when we make oaths with people. And the Bible talks, we talked about this before, and I'm not going to go too in depth into it today, but the Bible talks about like when we even make a vow to God, like how God, he wants us to keep our vow, keep our word. And so sometimes, and I'm going to just say this real quick and I'm going to stop it there because that'll be maybe another discussion for another day. I don't want to go too deep into it. But sometimes that's something maybe we need to take before the Lord, because a lot of times we made vows or we made promises and we have not kept our part.
Yes.
And we're not speaking of today, because let me say this, because I can hear this now. I'm saying, well, you know, what about grace? And yes, all of that. But we're not talking about that right now. Okay. What we're talking about is how God is concerned. So if you make a covenant, if you make a contract with someone, God is concerned about us keeping our part, us keeping our word, what we said we're going to do. And sometimes when we find ourselves in a situation to where we feel justified, if you will, don't get upset with me, okay? Listen, because I had to be the first partaker, okay? But sometimes we feel justified in not doing, like I said, I don't want to go too deep into this, our part, or keeping our covenant or our word. And say, like, for example, if the other person doesn't keep their part or whatever, however it's somehow that, and then we feel like we're not, no, but God is concerned. Sometimes that could be a hindrance to our prayers. Sometimes that could be that, as we call that glass ceiling, we feel like we're not breaking through. So take it before the Lord. The Holy Spirit will lead us and guide us, and the Holy Spirit will show us, because within that, and I'm gonna stop here. Within that, what we don't realize is that when we don't keep our vow, we don't keep our word, the covenant that, or the contract that we made, then we give the enemy a legal right to build a case against us. Because why? We giving him legal entrance, whether ignorantly or knowingly. And so, and like I said, I don't want to go too deep into this, but sometimes that could be part of the hindrance of why we're not seeing the breakthroughs, because God is a covenant God. God is, as we said, contract. God is a promising God. He keeps his word. He's faithful to his word, and we are his children. We are, joint heirs with Christ. And so he is looking for us to do the same. So, as Naaman said before, that's why it's so important that we be slow to speak. Can I say that?
Go ahead.
I'm learning to be slow to speak, because sometimes, us in our flesh, and I'm just using it, us in our flesh, sometimes we can, and I'm not going to go, I was going to say something about pride, but sometimes in our ego and all these different things, we start putting ourselves out there or whatever, or even zeal. And we start speaking things or saying things because we're caught up either in the moment or whatever the case may be. And we start releasing words. And then for whatever the reasons, it does not take place. So then you, like he was talking about, that other person, you have the other person like, and then so it's so many things can happen because of these things. And so, or us not keeping our word, or whatever, whatnot. So like even with our children, I don't tell them things. Like I don't promise them things. I don't tell them things, even if it's in my heart to do for them, because it's in our heart to do, to do good, and all these things for people, especially those that we love, all the. But what I do is I make sure that I can do it. Go to God, make sure I can do it, and then I release it to them. Or at that moment that I surprise, is what we call surprise them in that moment. Because why? I don't want them to get their hopes up, or me to tell them something, because things do happen. Let me say that things do happen that are out of our control, right?
Yes.
Okay. So with that being said, so just like I don't make those promises, and I have to be careful not to do so, or I had to come back and be like, hey, well, we didn't get to maybe, and I know personally how that feels.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna land that right there, and Amy, go ahead, but join us back. Join us here every other Thursday at 7 p.m. No Finance, No Romance. We are here. Follow us on Facebook, Clubhouse, and YouTube, and we greatly appreciate it.
So just real quick, disappointment is a hard thing to get over. That's why our word really matters so much to one another. And we have to value what we say to others, because we're also showing them through our words and our actions the value that they hold to us. So when I fulfill what I have said to you, it increases the value of that person. But when I come up short and I don't do what I said I would do concerning you, then it diminishes who they are before us, whether in our eyes or even in their own. So that's why we have to be very careful with what we say and the words that we put out there, because the image I kept getting was like dipping bread. Some people like to dip their bread into oils and different flavored items into something that is bitter, and then having to bite it. That's what happens when we leave those promises unfulfilled. We're leaving that bitter taste in our mouths. So let's be careful with what we say, because it does matter. It does carry weight, and it bears upon the souls of those that we come in contact with. Because again, heaven's listening, hell's listening, the earth itself is listening. What are we saying? And what's the intent with what we're saying it with?
Yes.
So thank you for joining us on today. Please, again, take it to heart. Let it work for you and not against you. Let it help in your relationship, so that going forward, your words, the merit of those words, will have truly impactful value. All right. So with that being said, is there anything else you want to add? Or?
Well, we love and appreciate each and every one of you. And thank you so much for just sharing. Thank you for letting others know about it. We greatly appreciate it. But other than that, you can just join us back every other Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Clubhouse.
So we'll see you next time. Enjoy one another.
Yes.
And enjoy your day.
Amen.
Good night.
Good night.